Here with Jeff Jarnecke, Associate Director of Championships at the NCAA and the liaison for the Wrestling Committee here at the NWCA Convention. And a lot of people question on the NCAA's involvement in wrestling, but Jeff, you guys have done a lot of great things in promoting the championships, especially at the Division I level. What is your role here at the NWCA Convention, and why is it important for the NCAA and the NWCA that you guys are here?
Sure. It's certainly an exciting week for us, and we figure our role, and we understand that our role is critically important around the collegiate model, but we help those around the grassroots efforts and understand what the role with the NWCA and USA Wrestling and helping to facilitate their roles. So as our wrestlers develop through those stages to ensure that they have resources all along the way to ultimately culminate then, at least from our vantage point, within the college experience, but then at the same time understand our role in facilitating and helping to grow and develop those student athletes who would like to participate within the Olympic movement as well. So to be here this week, to understand all the different perspectives that are there, and to understand how we can better facilitate, I think will help us to be a better partner with all the organizations present this week.
What are some initiatives the NCAA has tried to do? Say, look at the Division I championships, a lot more media exposure via ESPN3, live stats, that type of thing, more webcast coverage. What are some initiatives that you guys have done and working on to further improve the scale of wrestling in y'all's organization?
Sure. In terms of what we're doing around the championship specifically, we're working on enhancements for our student athletes in terms of what other amenities, both within the competition facility and the ancillary facilities that we have around the event, as well as our fans in terms of better understanding how they want to consume what they're seeing and engaging them in different ways than we have before. In the live sports radio, for example, this past year was one of the features, and then integrating the video boards and ribbon boards in the venue so they better understand and can see and interact and engage with us. Going forward, from what you saw from this year with Philadelphia and our experience there, we're looking to develop and move into potentially different markets than where we've been, to have that greater presence, to put wrestling on even a bigger scale and have more media members and more coverage for us around and beyond that part as well of what can we do for the regular season before we get to the NCAA tournament to aid in the coverage and the exposure. So those are probably our two biggest initiatives that we'll look to tackle in the next 12 months.
What's the most common question you get from coaches here, from say, from coaches in all divisions, 1, 2, and 3 under the NCAA banner that, I guess they question the NCAA, what's the one common thing you hear the most here?
I think the biggest question that we had, and I think we saw that maybe manifest itself a little bit with some of the other groups that were here as well, but what's the NCAA doing to stop the contraction around the Division I wrestling right now? And so what we're doing is working to celebrate the positives around NCAA wrestling as a whole, not just Division I. There's so many great stories to be able to share out there. There's so many wonderful student athletes who work so very hard along with our coaches, and so it's less about the contraction and more about that celebration across all three divisions, especially 2 and 3, where we're seeing growth right now in terms of our numbers of sponsorship. So if we're able to change that, change our position in terms of how wrestling is perceived within the membership, with how it's perceived within the community, and specifically then our fans as well, I think we can start to curb that and actually see some expansion in the near future.
One of the hot topics was some of the rule changes, and there was a very lively discussion. And talk about that type of discussion and what it leads to for the improvement of the sport, the modification of rules, the alteration, or even simple things like clarification. It seemed a lot of positive came out of that, despite some initial hesitation. So from a coaching standpoint and from an NCAA standpoint, why is it beneficial? I guess that kind of proves why it's beneficial to come here to the convention.
Sure. It's critically important for us. It was a needed step in the process and something we'll look to further grow in future years. Since we moved to the two-year rule cycle for our rule books, I think we can come up with a plan that further allows our coaches to have this opportunity to provide feedback, because at the end of the day it is their decision in terms of what this looks like through the membership process, and the membership runs the committee in terms of those 5 individuals that are on the Division I committee and the additional individuals that comprise the rules committee. And so I think we learned a lot. I think it's an important opportunity for the committee through our secretarial rules editor to share the intent of the rule, and then as well as taking that next step and ensuring that we're working with our officials to ensure that the intent is actually what's called then on the mat when we start this fall.
There was talk about the enhancements that have been done at the Division I level. There's also been talk about the national duels and then following into Division II and Division III. What are some NCAA plans for those 3 events, D2s, D3s, and potentially the future of the national duels with NCAA involvement?
Sure. National duels is an interesting one for us. Certainly very supportive of what the membership is trying to do, what the NWCA is trying to do, and so we're excited to see how that comes together. We're willing and able to offer resources to the extent that we can, to the extent that it makes sense, to ensure that that is successful. So we're excited to see what that looks like for this coming year, and again, playing whatever role we can going forward with that, if that's the direction that they elect to go. From a Division 1, 2, and 3 standpoint, I think you'll see greater emphasis in terms of continuity and understanding and a shared approach within all 3 divisions in terms of how we communicate with the membership, what we're sharing with the membership, having sessions like this where we're able to share rules across all 3 divisions and understand that the brand and the positioning of NCAA wrestling isn't just defined by Division 1, it's the 3 divisions collectively together. So we're excited about that. 2 and 3 are very excited in terms of their numbers of where they are from the attendance standpoint. Those are only going to increase in the future, and we're starting to now explore some other ideas with the potential combination of a Division 1 and Division 2 championship in future years. Does that make sense for us right now? Does it make sense for Division 2? Does it make sense for the sport as a whole? It's an interesting and intriguing conversation. We're happy to float that, excited to float that idea this week, again, to further engage the community and the membership. And so if we see, and after we work through our planning and get the feedback from the membership that it doesn't make sense, then we'll likely go in a different direction and figure out how we can support and enhance those championships in a different way. But if it does make sense, then the positioning of NCAA wrestling, regardless if that happens, but the positioning of NCAA wrestling could be even more exciting in the next 3 to 5 years.